March 14th meeting of the San Carlos City Council. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any changes to the order of the agenda?
None from staff this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Any from the council? Hearing none. Item 4, report from closed session.
There is no report from closed session tonight.
Thank you. Item 5, council communications and announcements. You'll note the absence of one of our colleagues, Matt Grocott, tonight. As many of you know, he's recovering from treatment for lymphoma. Bob and I saw him last week. He's looking well. We expect him back soon, and he is missed. We'll move on to council communications and announcements, and we'll start with Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one item this evening. I think a number of us have, probably all of us have received emails over the last few days regarding lot splits and homes being built on subdivided lots in San Carlos. And the writers are generally opposed to that for a number of issues having to do with housing density. I'd like to suggest, see if there's interest on the dais in discussing this. I'd like to suggest that we agendize some time to talk about changing our rules so that a lot split would be subject to a lower density of construction. I tend to think of it in terms of lot coverage ratio, but there are a number of rules that we have that govern how big a structure can be built on any lot. And the idea would be that since large lots tend to reduce the overall density of a neighborhood, that if somebody chooses to and gets a lot subdivision approved, that they ought to be only allowed to build a lower density type of construction on the resulting 2 lots. So I'd like to, propose that we take that up for discussion and review and see if there's any interest in the dais in doing that.
Thanks, Mark. I think it's an interesting idea, and I agree that it's an important topic. As you know, as many of us know, there was a Planning Commission meeting last week where there was a proposed lot split that was considered before the Planning Commission. My understanding in talking to staff, and Al, maybe you can clarify for us, that the Planning Commission at that time asked the staff to bring back and essentially hold a study session at the Planning Commission on the topic of lot splits. And so what I wanted to ask you is, would you see, given that that's going to be forthcoming in front of the Planning Commission, would you want your proposal to be considered as part of that conversation? Would you want to do it in parallel afterwards? How do you think about that?
I'm actually fairly flexible about it. I was aware that the Planning Commission was going to have that kind of study session. To me, I think the question is more, I'd still be interested in whether it's the specifics of my proposal or just the concept itself, whether the dais has an interest in at least discussing that, because quite frankly, if, hypothetically, we had no interest in anything like that, then the Planning Commission probably ought to know that before they have their study session.
That makes sense. I mean, I personally think it's a topic worth discussing. There's a lot of public interest. From my perspective, I'd be interested to see how the discussion goes at the Planning Commission and see if any policy proposals, reaction from the community is generated, and then have a conversation at the City Council level. But I don't know how others feel.
Yeah, through the chair, I agree with the mayor on this one. I certainly think it's something we should talk about. But I think in light of the fact that the Planning Commission is going to have that study session, I'd like to, again, lend my voice that I'm interested and want to have it. But I think that would be the first step, and then come back to us.
Yeah, I would agree as well.
Okay, great. And Al, can you tell us when you think that meeting might occur?
I'd say we'll need about 4 weeks to prepare that. We'll be in front of the Planning Commission probably the end of next month, beginning of the month after that, and then we'll bring it to you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Anything else, Mark?
No, Mr. Mayor, that's it.
All right. Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things I realized that had transpired since our last council meeting. I attended, in fact, we all attended the badge pinning ceremony of Fire Chief Maupin a couple of weeks ago. It was a great morning, and I'm very happy that Stan's our new fire chief. Also, I attended a monthly San Mateo County Affordable Housing Task Force meeting that was convened last fall by Don Horsley and Warren Slocum, the San Mateo County supervisors. And we are actually starting to generate some collective ideas to attack the affordable housing crisis, and we're starting to do some outreach to diverse groups. There's sort of a synergy in this now that we're coming up with some ideas that I think long-term may really have an effect on the housing crisis, because this really is a regional problem. It's not just a San Carlos problem or a San Mateo problem or a Belmont problem. It's a San Mateo County problem. It's a big regional problem, as everybody knows, but 20 cities in the Bay Area, we all talk together, and so I believe that for the first time we're starting to make some real progress, and hopefully some people will see a real impact of that down the road. Also attended the Caltrain modernization meeting. I'm on that task force. They call it CalPod, or CalMod rather, local policymakers group, and it's really these are really informational meetings for us. The Samtrans board, JPA, really makes the decisions, but it's good for us because it gives us an update on what's happening. And at this particular meeting, one of the issues was the compatibility with high-speed rail. That is going to be an issue that's not going to go away. We still seem to be on track for funding for electrification 5 years down the road, although you may have read in the newspaper a week or so ago that there are some more funding challenges, and I expect that there will probably continue to be. The president has $176 million, I think, in his budget for next year that's specifically earmarked for high-speed rail. The only problem with that is that it's earmarked in the budget, and Congress has to vote on the budget. So we'll see what happens. Actually, I wrote it down. I should have looked at my own notes. $125 million. So we'll see how that goes. And we had and also last thing, we had a strategic planning meeting this morning, and we made some nice progress on that. And it was good to be able to talk to the department heads and have the council all in one room. And I find those very valuable. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ron. Bob?
I was going to mention the strategic planning, but Mr. Collins took care of that. Serve on as the city's representative on the Silicon Valley Clean Water Board, and we had our meeting last week, and still in process to proceed on with the modernization of the plant to reflect the 21st century requirements for making sure that the plant does its job. It handled, I guess it was last Wednesday, the most water flow that it had ever handled. And it handled it well. People, they always worry when you hit the top number because you're not sure whether your system's going to handle it, but it did. There weren't any incidents, and again, continuing to modernize it and make sure that there's never going to be any incidents. So that's all I had today.
Thanks, Bob. That's great news. So for me, I brought a couple pictures as usual. If you could bring those up, Crystal. So we had some big news since the last meeting. As I mentioned, the city applied for a grant to build a bicycle and pedestrian bridge over Highway 101, which connect San Carlos to Redwood Shores and provide a safe passage for bicyclists and pedestrians, because it's pretty dangerous now going over the current Holly overpass. And I'm glad to report that the Transportation Authority Board, on which I serve, awarded the city of San Carlos $1 million, which was the maximum possible amount. And I wanted to thank Jeff and Grace for attending the meeting, and Jeff for saying a few words. The funding must be used within 1 year, so we're out looking for additional grants. But thanks to Jay and all the public works staff for their hard work on this. This is a very exciting project for our city, and if we can get this done in the next year or two, I think it'll be exciting. I got to turn this on. There we go. When you work in government, you get to hold lots of big fake checks. I had CCAG meeting, which is the City and County Association of Governments meeting. We were given a ceremonial check from for PG&E representing all the rebates for electricity efficiency projects in the county, which totaled $1.5 million for 2015. There was also a lot of conversation about the decline in the state transportation infrastructure program as a result of the decline in gas tax revenue, and how San Mateo County in particular is sharing a disproportionate share of the burden there. So there are a number of representatives from the county that are in Washington, D.C. this week lobbying on that particular issue. With, I think, all of my colleagues, I had the opportunity to attend a Healthy Cities tutoring event called Perfect Pairings, which was downtown. Healthy Cities Tutoring, as most people know, is a volunteer organization in town that supplies tutors in our public schools. It was a great event, very well done. One of my most fun events as mayor is that I got the opportunity to attend my daughter's preschool as part of Community Helpers Week. Earlier in the week, there was a representative from the fire department, a representative from the police department, a mail carrier, and then I got to go. I told them that my job is to listen to the community and ask them what they want. I wanted to let Ron know that they were unanimous. They all wanted a public pool. So I told them that they should talk to you about that. But yeah, no, that was really fun. My daughter was very excited, and she picked up my tie.
Give them my phone number.
And then I told the kids, in the morning I get to hang out with all the little kids, and then in the afternoon I get to see all the grandmas and grandpas in town. So I continued a tradition that Ron and Mark started, and I got to go do a little town hall with residents at the Elms. They were very excited to hear that the farmers market is being moved to Sunday mornings. They're excited to be able to attend that. There was a lot of conversation about the neighborhood dog park, which is just 2 blocks down, and generally a really, really fun group. I had the opportunity to give the city coin to this gentleman. His name is Pete Rodriguez last week. This was an event that was organized by Chief Rothus. Pete is a security guard at Best Buy, and in December he caught a shoplifter, and he got the merchandise from the shoplifter. He was escorting him out of the store, and the guy pulled out a knife. And Pete, who was armed, decided he wasn't going to pull his weapon in the store. He gave the guy some distance, got him out of the store to protect the customers. And then he had a decision to make. He could let the guy run off since he was out of the store and he had the property back, but he decided he was going to pull his weapon on the guy. The guy then told Pete to shoot him and held on to his knife. Pete didn't shoot him. He persuaded him to put down the knife. Then Pete put his weapon away. The guy then challenged him to a fight. Pete took out his taser, threatened him with the taser, was ultimately able to get him to comply, and he was taken into custody. But it was an example, particularly at a time where there's concerns about use of excessive force, of somebody being very level-headed, taking the right escalation and de-escalation of force to protect the community. So he got a commendation from the city as well as from the Sheriff's Department. Thank you to the chief for organizing the event. I thought it was great. And lastly, I got an opportunity to speak at the swearing-in of Chief Maupin, which we're going to move on to in just a second. And that is all I have. Okay. Item 5B, I believe, is staff comments on city administrative business. Did you want to say anything? No? Okay.
Just a quick one, just a reminder to the community that the mayor's State of the City speech will be Wednesday at Devil's Canyon. And I'm sure you can still purchase tickets through the Chamber of Commerce. And if you can't make it, unfortunately we can't broadcast it live because we can't broadcast from that particular venue. We don't have a connection there, but we will be rebroadcasting the Mayor's State of the City speech for probably the next month or so. So tune in and check it out if you can't make it Wednesday night.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, we are very excited to be able to swear in our new fire chief. Jeff is going to give him a badge, which I believe there's a little bit of story and history about, and I'm going to deliver the oath of office. So we'll come on down. Stan, please join us.
Maybe official in Redwood City, but I know.
You know, Jeff, if you draw blood, I think we have enough paramedics here.
All right, Stan. Hello. Please raise your right hand. Good. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, and that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you're about to enter?
I do.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you care to say a few words?
I would love to. Thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much for this honor tonight. I'd like to kind of take a few moments and just recognize one of the reasons that I picked Jeff Malpe to pin my badge on, and he was very gracious in doing that for me. And a lot of my success in my current position comes from the 4.5 years that I've spent with my association with San Carlos. As the deputy fire chief during those 4.5 years, my primary responsibility was to San Carlos as the acting fire chief, dealing with all matters at that level. And I think that my development through that association was critical to my success today. And of course, with Jeff leading the city and leading the department heads, and mentoring me and bringing me along, I just felt it was very appropriate that I asked Jeff to pin it on. I really appreciate that. The badge that we put on today, we brought it out of the History Museum, and it actually has, we're able to trace it back as far as 1928 at this point. We haven't got an official history on it, but it's been in the care of the city of San Carlos for a long time. So to have the honor of the responsibility of leading the fire department and the men and women that deliver excellent service, and then to have, add on to that honor the ability to wear this badge that's been in the service of the city for so long is just really truly beyond words. Again, I want to thank you very much for the things that you do to make the city function, to make the city work as well as it does, and I'm very proud and honored to be entrusted with this responsibility. So thank you.
Thank you. Would any of my colleagues care to make any comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would just very briefly. Stan, it's been great working with you in your former role, and I look forward to working with you in your current role. I have always enjoyed your accessibility and your level-headedness and your willingness to think outside the box on some of the complex issues associated with managing I don't know if it's a two-headed beast or a two-citied beast, but you do it very, very well, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, Cameron. If anybody had told us 5-6 years ago when we were in quite a bit of a mess with our fire department that we'd be 6 years down the road and have a joint fire department with Redwood City and have great management, I would have really been wondering about whether or not that statement was really true. But I can't think of a better person for the job. You have the respect of all of us and all the firefighters that work for you, and I wish you the best of luck and long service.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attending the badge pinning ceremony in Redwood City, again, buttressed what my colleague, Mr. Collins, indicated. The city manager, I think, of Redwood City made an excellent choice. And even as evidenced by the folks that are here tonight. I know a couple have to be here, but not everybody has to be here. And I could feel it in that room that there was a lot of respect for the work you've done and the work you're going to do. So again, thank you for being our chief, and thank you for all the work you've done and for all the things you're going to be doing for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. And I'll just add a couple more words. You know, when we had the badge pinning ceremony in Redwood City, everyone kept saying, you know, Stan's going to make a great fire chief, Stan's going to make a great fire chief. And for us in San Carlos, we already know that because Stan has been our fire chief. And, you know, what I said the other day, which is, you know, echoing what some of my comments or what some of my colleagues have said, is that, you know, when we decided to change the configuration of our fire service in San Mateo or in San Carlos and break up with Belmont, it was a pretty controversial issue that caused a lot of people a lot of heartache, and there were some bad feelings afterwards. And you know, I can't really think of anybody else who could bring the right kind of sort of healing demeanor and bring everybody together and bring us through that in a very, you know, in some ways low key, but really kind of professional and like, let's move forward and let's focus on providing great services. So I think you've done an excellent job. I'm very excited that you're going to be in this new role, that we get to keep you as you move up in the world, and congratulations again. Okay. So we are going to move on. This is not the end of Stan's night with us tonight. But I have the privilege of delivering a proclamation to a representative from the American Red Cross. Is there a representative here this evening? Please come on up. And yeah, sure, if you want to do that.
Becoming your official photographer.
Yeah, Councilman Collins can play the role of official photographer. Nice to meet you. So I have the privilege of proclaiming March 2016 as American Red Cross Month in the city of San Carlos. And I think many people know what the Red Cross does, but it provides a vital service to our nation, to our county, to our city in terms of disaster preparedness, teaching CPR and first aid, doing blood drives. And so I think it's very fitting that we recognize the Red Cross, that we encourage people to participate with the Red Cross, to donate to the Red Cross in times of need. I'll read a little bit of this. It says, whereas the American Red Cross Month is a special time to recognize and thank our everyday heroes, those who reach out and help people in need. And whereas the American Red Cross heroes help disaster victims recover, they give blood to help a hospital patient, brighten the day of an injured service member, and step up to help someone having a heart attack. And whereas we would like to remember our heroes here in the city of San Carlos who tirelessly work to assist their neighbors when they need a helping hand, therefore be it resolved that we hereby proclaim March 2016 as American Red Cross Month in the city of San Carlos. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you heard, but my name is Tricia Clement. I am a board member of the Red Cross, as well as the chair of the Leadership Council here in San Mateo County. On behalf of the Red Cross, my council, as well as the volunteers in San Carlos and countywide, I would like to thank you, Mayor Johnson, as well as the council members and the community of San Carlos for giving us this proclamation and honoring our service within your community and across the nation. As Mayor Johnson mentioned, we are working locally to assist with disasters. We assist our military. We assist first responders when there are times of disasters. And we set up shelters, and we're there when fires and floods hit our local areas. We have helped in 2015 over 700 individuals while we responded to over 50 disasters. We have trained more than 5,000 in CPR, first aid, and water safety. And through our home fire prevention campaign, we have partnered with our local fire departments and schools, and we have been able to install in this last year 450 fire detectors within residential dwellings. I'd like to take this opportunity to let the council know, as well as the community, that the Red Cross now has 2 important apps, and you can find those in your app store. We have the Emergency Red Cross app, which can prepare you for disasters, and then once a disaster hits, can lead you to your local shelters and help you, as well as our new Blood Red Cross app, which has streamlined and simplified any donations of blood within your community. Again, I would like to thank you, council members, as well as the San Carlos Volunteers for the Red Cross. Thank you for this proclamation.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to item 7, public comment for items not on the agenda. This evening I have one speaker card for Michael Rodriguez. Please come up, sir. Good evening.
Gentlemen, lady, I'm Michael Rodriguez. I'm new to San Carlos in the sense that I'm returning. I was a native here back in '48, and you're honoring the chief, fire chief, and I respect those gentlemen highly. When I was living in Menlo Park, I made a seafood salad and gave it to the fire department over there, and also the police department over in Atherton, which I respected. I had an encounter when I was in grade school here at St. Charles. We had a fire on the hill, and I remember going through the lobby or through the corridors and seeing the fire hose, and I was always intrigued by that. And I was just recalled this by some of the classmates from school in a class reunion. They said I went out, opened the door, and dragged the hose out there. It was about 35 feet or so. And I got the fire under control, and I was only about fifth or sixth grade. And the fire trucks came up, and Smokey the Bear was a big thing at the time. And they said, you know, you put it out. You help you get it under control. And I've never forgotten that. Little did I know I'd be going into the Air Force into air rescue, and we had missions similar. Then the other thing is the Red Cross. I go along with that. When I was in South San Francisco, 4 times and 5 times a month, I would donate blood to Blood Centers of the Pacific. One police officer who was shot got 150 transfusions from me, and every month there was countless people that. And I'm not boasting about myself. I'm just saying there's other people to be rewarded. But I get to the point where I have to do. I'm a little upset at some of the noise that goes on. I'm over here on Chestnut and Santa Cruz Avenue. When motorcycles go by at night, they just come peeling through there. I know we can't put suppression on everything, but it seems like it'd be a little bit nicer if you could maybe make an advisory, you know, because some fellas I've seen come by, they take off real smooth, and others come running. And I think as far as the senior center is concerned, whoever placed those trees there near the sidewalk is beginning to encroach on the sidewalk. And there's roots coming up from the ground around the surrounding bushes, and I think that should have been taken care of already. I mean, you're going to be putting up a pedestrian bikeway, and you want to do this quickly, and you want to spend $1 million quickly. I think it'd be prudent to hold back and really plan this out, rather than putting us through some extra waste, perhaps.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else here tonight who would like to speak under general public comment? Okay, we will move on then to item 8, approval of the consent calendar. Consent items are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion on these items unless members of the council, staff, or public request specific items to be removed from for separate action. Is there anyone who wishes to remove an item? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we approve the consent calendar items. Thank you. I forgot to do that. A through L, and adopt Ordinance 1502, an ordinance of the City's Council and the City of San Carlos amending chapters 18.05, 18.23, and 18.41 of the San Carlos zoning ordinance, Title 18 of the San Carlos Municipal Code to define formula business and establish a permit process for formula business uses in the downtown core area, 600, 700, and 800 blocks of Laurel Street, 1100 block of San Carlos Avenue, and the south side of the 1200 block of San Carlos Avenue, and adopt Ordinance 1503, an ordinance of the City Council and the City of San Carlos amending chapters 10.32.200 and 10.32.210, increasing the parking time limit on the west side of El Camino south of Holly to the Redwood City limits from 1 hour to 2 hours.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Crystal, please call the roll.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Grisilli?
Yes.
Councilmember Obert?
Crystal, I'll be voting no on item 8, D as in dog, but yes on the otherwise.
Okay. And Mayor Johnson?
Yes. All right. Item 9, report to council. Presentation on annual report on fire services. Chief Maupin.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Stan Maupin, I'm still your fire chief tonight. Starting off with an annual update of the services with San Carlos Fire Department, proudly provided by the Redwood City Fire Department. We are 2.5 years into our full services contract agreement, and actually 4.5 years into our association with the two cities under the management of the San Carlos Fire Department. Prior to that, starting in 2011. I bring before you the organizational chart of the Redwood City San Carlos Fire Department, and just merely for the public to once again see that with the partnership of the two departments, the resources that are truly available, while we have 2 fire stations in San Carlos, as you know, really the access is to 7 fire stations and all the associated personnel, staffing, and resources available through a larger fire department of our nature. Looking at 2014 and 2015 in the call volumes, you can see that they are, the number of calls are fairly steady, and we haven't seen any market increase over the last couple years between the two cities and then total call volume altogether. The incident call type for San Carlos, I do want to call that out for a few moments. Most fire departments, if not all, are predominantly EMS driven. So you see that, such is the case with San Carlos and Redwood City. But that doesn't just define completely what we do. You can see that the types of calls there, while the numbers for EMS are a lot higher than the other types of calls, the other things that we study are necessarily are centered around things like how long does each type of call take, where, for example, a call for a structure fire takes a lot longer commitment time than, say, a call for an EMS call. But you can see that the call volume has stayed pretty steady for the last 2 years. Just as a point of interest, we wanted to kind of also demonstrate that for the last year, 2015, that by day of the week, the call volume also is pretty standard. There is no one day of the week that's higher than others. The weekends aren't more busy than the week. We do have many people that ask us about different times of the week and the day that when we have more calls and not. And this has been our experience and been my experience professionally, is that even for things like holidays and different events that you'd think the call volume would spike and lessen, we hold a pretty steady amount of calls, which keeps us moving along. And then by time of day, if you look closely, you can see that right after lunchtime tends to be our highest call volume. I think that people go to lunch and then decide they need fire department services after they've taken a break. But you can see the trend is obviously quite predictable. The night times are a lot slower. The daytime, when people are up and moving around, are more busy. But again, we tend to see things like residential structure fires more in the evening and nighttime hours than we do during the day, and vice versa for other types of calls. Just for the fire and life safety inspections that we do every year, in 2015 we completed over 1,000 life safety inspections. What those are inspections of either multifamily residentials, commercial occupancies, any high rises, any other buildings that are mandated by the state to be inspected. But we have a completion rate of over 1,000 inspections every year, and that is performed by our one fire prevention officer, but also our 2 engine companies on each shift also perform these inspections. And these inspections are critical for the fire companies in that they get a chance to get into the buildings. It's a chance for them to actually kind of pre-plan out their action should they have a call there that they normally wouldn't have if they didn't have some of these inspections to work on. One of the things that's been heard loud and clear by the City Council for all departments, and especially public safety, is community outreach. And we embrace that, and we're finding different ways each year to create more and more contact with the community. As our business tends to be viewed as a reactive business, we also view it, the proactive side of our business, as something that's extremely important to the community, and we recognize that within the City of San Carlos also. As you can see, during the year, we performed 55 different public education events. We contacted over 7,000 people. Last year, during Fire Prevention Week, we held our first open house at Station 13 to kick off Fire Prevention Week, and we anticipate doing that again. We also have a program in Redwood City that was started there called the Junior Fire Academy, and this is a week-long camp in the summertime where kids of various ages get to come and get to learn what it is to be a firefighter. But within that, they also learn valuable skills that can carry them through day to day in their lives. Last year was the first year that we're able to jointly have San Carlos and Redwood City residents participate, and we look to have that moving forward, and we're already in progress of doing that again for 2016. So it's a great time. The kids get to see really what's going on in the fire department, and again, learn some valuable skills. And then this year, 2016, on the calendar, planning out in conjunction with the sheriff's office and the assistant city manager, we're looking at a public safety day, sometime around October-ish, with the dates still being worked on, but a chance for all the aspects of public safety in the city of San Carlos to get together and hold basically a fair that any citizens can come down to and learn about different ways to keep themselves safe and protected. Moving forward, or what's happening now, or what's going to be happening soon, you may have heard recently that we had a new fire chief. I think that's been talked about a little bit. One of the things that, just on a side note on that, one of the things about this promotion is that what I really enjoy is that, again, I'm the first fire chief that was been promoted that has had an intimate interaction with San Carlos, and I think that is going to benefit the city and our department well, because I'm very tuned into what the needs of the city are, both financially, service-wise, and what the community needs. So I'll be definitely taking advantage of that experience to make sure that we maintain the partnership in a way that's, again, positive for both communities. The bottom left, promotions and new hires. My promotion then has a domino effect down the chain in the organization, which is a very healthy thing, that we're able to work within the organization to provide promotional opportunities and succession planning for people down the ranks, and we'll be working through those very rapidly, and I'll be keeping you closely informed of how those promotions come down. And of course, at the bottom of the rank structure, then that brings up opportunities for new hires to fill vacancies that have occurred. One of the things we're working on, also focusing on, is officer development of our fire captains and our battalion chiefs and all our chief officers. The last few years have been very frantic for us, doing various things, whether it's the partnership between the two cities, a big retirement bulge, some other things that have brought in a bunch of new officers, and we're taking the time now to really focus and give them known expectations and some development in their ability to perform their job quite adequately. Internal development is along the same lines, as that we've had quite a bit of activity. I mentioned reactive and proactive earlier about our type of business, but certainly as a fire department, we've been leaning more towards reactive based on the pace of events we've worked through, and it's our goal now moving forward to be a more proactive fire department and be able to answer more aggressively the questions that I know council has brought up before about what are the next steps, where do we go from here as a fire department. Some of the other things going on, we are in line to buy another new fire engine. Our fleet, when we created the San Carlos Fire Department back in 2011, was a little aging. So with the purchase of the next fire engine, that'll put our fleet in a great position. At that point, our oldest fire engine will be 2008. And that'll be our reserve backup fire engine. So the fleet in San Carlos will be in really great shape to be able to move forward and provide the service levels that we've come to expect. One of the things that we're very looking forward to very aggressively also is how do we tell you what we do? And traditionally in the fire service, we've used some antiquated benchmarks for data analysis, and we've also been looking at what we've done to show you, kind of help you make decisions. One of the things we've embarked on is what we call predictive modeling. And I've mentioned that to a few of you as we've had discussions, but for the public, what we've come across a program and a consultant that we're very excited about. And this person has the ability to help us, and this company has the ability to help us do, again, predictive modeling and looking forward versus looking at where we've been and how do we make decisions. If you look in the lower left-hand corner of the slide, you'll see a heat map, and that's just a quick snapshot of some work we did that shows concentration of calls and those types of things. But this program actually is going to help us be able to predict more accurately what future moves can do. And what I really like is its flexibility in that we can take anything and we can think about different ideas in delivering service, create that model and plunk it down onto this map and basically see how it would work and how it would affect our service delivery to the communities we serve. Kind of equated to SimCity for the fire department, basically. So we're really excited about that. And then, of course, development in the community. You know, we're very conscious of all the development going on in San Carlos that's upcoming. And I think I was talking with one of the council members about how the development in Redwood City might affect our ability to deliver service. And we're really confident that we're well positioned to provide that service, even with the amount of development going on and what our future is going to look like to be able to continue to provide that service. One of the things that, just as a kind of a note on the contract between the two cities for fire services, one of the things that we're really looking at is, and I know this is a question we'll be looking at in a little bit, is the trajectory of the cost of fire service, specifically for Redwood City and San Carlos. And right now, that trajectory, if you look at the last 2 years, has been pretty high, and we're looking at that tapering off certainly by year 5 at the latest. But I think one of the great advantages of the contract that was negotiated between the two cities and all the people that were involved in it was that this contract is based on the actual dollar for dollar costs of the service down to the employee cost dollar for dollar versus any kind of a smoothing or kind of a generic approach to service delivery. And I was speaking with a peer in the fire service not too long ago within the county, and I was talking about that, and he was kind of surprised, and he says, "Boy, that's a lot of work." And I said, "Yes, it is, but it definitely gives us the best value for the service being delivered to the two cities." So one of the things that's going to help us smooth that out is when our workforce reaches the top of their salary range, which occurs in year 5. And I think that normally that's not a big impact, but I believe what happens there is that we have such a large percentage of new employees based on the 2011 model that we'll see a severe tapering off of the increases. And I think that's the benefit to this contract. And with that, we look forward to obviously continue on and providing the services that we do currently, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Chief. Questions for the Chief? Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Stan. Great presentation. I want to start off just by thanking you for something else that I forgot to mention when you were pinned earlier, which is thank you for all your work in making a smooth transition from the pre-existing San Carlos Fire Department to being part of the Redwood City Fire Department, because they're all your guys now, but they used to be our guys, and so it's important to us that you took care of them.
Thank you.
The one question I had, which if it's a lengthy answer, I'm happy to meet with you offline, but when you were talking about the impact of development in the community, and like in San Carlos, how do you go about determining what kind of scale of operation a community needs to have adequate fire protection? In other words, as more construction happens in San Carlos, do we need to be considering that at some point we need a third fire station, or how does that kind of thing get evaluated?
We're more than happy to take a third fire station if you'd like to do that for us. But quite seriously, one of the things that we're watching very closely, and we're working with the other departments in the city, especially community development and those things, to look at what the projected growth is. And some of the things we're evaluating are things like just the demographics with what our population in both cities would look like, because that definitely trends towards what types of calls we anticipate increasing. While with more modern construction, obviously the fire side of our job in those newer buildings is much less, but we still have the same inventory of buildings in each city that we had before we built those buildings to be a fire problem for us. But when we look at the demographics of what potentially could be coming into either city, it definitely shapes whether we see an increase in EMS calls if we have an older population, maybe more service-oriented calls based on what kind of housing we're developing and what's going into those types of housing and who's occupying those types of houses. We're very conscious of the fact that the community is service-oriented and deserves and demands a very a high level of help with those types of calls. So what we do a lot of times is we'll evaluate through, again, the Code 3 simulator program, which is the predictive modeling, look at the demographics, look at the types of calls we're having, and then just project out there what our needs could be.
Okay, thank you. I have to admit enough curiosity about some of the things you were saying. Maybe you and I could meet offline and spend a little time talking about those things.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Other questions for the chief? I'm not seeing any. The next item on the agenda is not about fire, but then we have one, item 10B. So what I'm thinking is we may just move on to 10B out of order and leave you up there because we have a number of guests from the fire department here tonight. Does that sound all right?
That's fine with me, sure.
All right,
Yes.
So we will move on to item 10B, consideration of adopting a resolution approving Exhibit C to the amended and restated agreement between the cities of Redwood City and San Carlos for fire and emergency services for fiscal years 2015 to 2016.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Rebecca Mendenhall, Administrative Services Director. Before you tonight is the approval of Exhibit C for fiscal year 2016. Although we've already been halfway through the year, a little more than halfway through the year, we've been paying for the service at the prior year rate. Due to key vacancies in the city of Redwood City, including the city manager and the fire chief that was recently appointed, this is the first opportunity we've had to bring this forward for your review. So costs in this contract have increased approximately $500,000 or 8.5% from the prior year. These increases are due primarily to increases in compensation based on the negotiated union agreements, the phasing in of the unfunded pension liabilities as agreed to in the original contract. This year we're paying 20% of the unfunded costs, and increases in workers' compensation. In addition to setting the costs for fiscal year 16, we also need to pay the true-up costs from the prior fiscal year. Those amount to approximately 120% or 2% above what was estimated. As the chief mentioned earlier, we pay actual costs, so we do a reconciliation at the end of every year. This true-up cost can vary. The year before, we actually had a credit due of $400,000. So we're working closely with Chief Maupin now to estimate the cost for the next fiscal year and hope to have something to you in the coming months. The adopted budget includes funding in the amount of approximately $6.1 million for this contract. So approval of this Exhibit C will require additional appropriation of $350,000. This $350,000 could be taken from the unallocated fund balance, which is currently estimated to be $2.4 million. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and the chief is also here if you have questions.
Questions? Bob?
Rebecca, on the staff report, on page 2 of the staff report, there's analysis. There's items 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. And certainly you just indicated the true-up costs that we have to could go, any direction depending on what it is. Supplies and services are not extremely nominal. The compensation change, did we have any of that last year?
The city of Redwood City adopted their MOU that was effective in 2014. They were a little behind, and the chief can probably answer exactly the terms of that, but we had some retroactivity that we had to pay for as well.
Okay, so it could happen again, that item would show up again, possibly, or not?
The contract expires in 2017, December of 2017.
So again, 1, 2, and 3 could possibly show up. Certainly 3 will show up one way or the other,
Right.
and probably 1 will show up again. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rebecca, I think my question is probably for Chief Maupin. But I enjoyed your presentation. And I have to admit, I understood it much better after having spent 45 minutes with you this afternoon going through it. Chief, something I didn't ask you before because I didn't realize we were going to take the items out of order. Can you give me a brief update on where things stand with the station merger discussion that we've had on and off over the years? Because it's always been something that struck me as kind of an interesting opportunity, and I have to admit, it looks interesting enough that I kind of wish it was happening sooner.
Absolutely. And not to sound like a broken record, but one of the things that that question has been hanging out there for quite a while, and that was one of my main goals when I was appointed fire chief, was to get that question answered for everybody involved. So using the predictive modeling, we actually brought the consultant in and brought in some participation from the organization itself also to really accurately evaluate that possibility and see if that is operationally feasible and operationally safe for the community to do that. I'm actually about 2 to 3 weeks out, hopefully, from getting the final report on that. And then I'm going to look at it and digest and figure out the best way to present it to all interested parties, because obviously both city councils have an interest, both city managers, labor has an interest in what happens with that and those types of things. So we are, again, probably 3 weeks away from getting the final data put together and brought down, and then we'll work on getting the presentation to you on that.
Great. I look forward to seeing that. However it ends up coming out, it's just an interesting idea. And I just want to sort of further to a comment that you made in your earlier presentation. I think it's great that you're focusing on what I tend to think of as the trajectory of costs, because it's a great service. We just need to make sure that we can be able to pay for it. And knowing ahead of time as best we can what it's likely to cost is a big factor of that.
And actually, I have an interest in that also, so I know that. yeah, just so I can make sure we keep things on the right track, yes.
So I look forward to that work as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So can I assume that Redwood City is also seeing about an 8% increase in their cost to provide for fire services this year? Is that the way this works?
It's close. It's the same kind of thing for different reasons, but it's the same impacts that affect Redwood City are mirrored in the San Carlos contract. Again, some of the retroactive pay that Rebecca spoke to, the increases in just the negotiated salaries plus step increases of employees and on and on and on, those things we've talked about. Again, and we look to bring those costs down to those increases each year. And there's some things that I'm looking at over the next couple of years at the most on trying to get things a little more true across the board in some areas that we've made some adjustments in different times.
Can you give me an example?
Things like specific for Redwood City would be overtime. We've today have a traditional under budgeting of that for various reasons that are kind of becoming not invalid but are no longer in place right now. So I'm looking at trying to get that trued up. So we're having an actual accurate picture all year long versus trying to make the getting everything in line by the end of the year. So I think that will reflect in San Carlos also. Workers' comp, as was mentioned earlier, we had a big year last year, and public safety, as you know, both police and fire are big customers of workers' comp, if you will. It's a very physical job on both ends, as we know, and that tends to be a little unpredictable. But within that, in order to address that, it's not a case of just throwing our hands up and saying, "Oh well, it's dangerous." I put in place 4 different programs that go department-wide on ways to help reduce the potential for injury, exposure, and illness in our department.
And then you mentioned before, you thought that the trajectory of costs would start to taper off in, I think you said year 4 of the contract, which is next year. Is that right?
We'll see the beginning of the tapering off, yes.
And can you give any more specifics about that? What we're projecting in terms of cost growth?
I think right now it'd be a little premature.
Okay.
It's definitely going to be what we're looking at. The numbers we're starting to kind of put together are definitely less.
So we wouldn't expect to see an 8% year-on-year again increase in cost.
I hope not. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. I hope not, but I'm projecting professionally that we're not going to see it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Ron, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had one. When we signed this contract about 3 years ago, and it's a 5-year contract, given these changes in expenses, are things tracking pretty much as we expected them to? I don't know if this is a question that you would answer, or maybe Rebecca, but I'm just curious. Are we pretty much on track for what we expected it to be when we signed this 3 years ago?
I think we're seeing a sharp increase in the first 3 to 4 years that we probably would have preferred. It was more of a graduated approach. But I think that what's bearing out is the things we talked about already: the negotiations, retro pay, workers' comp spike. But I think that once we see the next Exhibit C moving forward from there, we'll see it really where we want it to be. Some of this is a bit of startup of a new fire department, if you will. But I think that we're probably a little higher than we would have hoped for initially. But I see it leveling off pretty quickly.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Mark, you have another question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Stan, you touched on it briefly. It was the workers' comp cost figure, which when I saw it, I was actually rather surprised because it looked to me like about 2 FTEs almost, which was relatively significant given the size of the pool. I think it's great that you've launched the effort to try and manage that, because you're right, you can't just throw up your hands about it. And I'll just, instead of asking the question since you answered it, I'll just say that, speaking for myself, if there are things that you could look to for us or from us to try and reduce that, I'd love to hear that. I mean, forget the financial issues aside. I mean, it's health and safety of employees, and that's pretty important.
Great. Thank you, Wes.
All right. Any further questions? Is there anyone wishing to speak on public comment on this item? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to adopt Resolution 2016-31, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos approving Exhibit C to the amended and restated agreement between the cities of Redwood City and San Carlos for fire and emergency services for fiscal year 2015-16 in the amount of $6,319,005 and authorizing an additional fiscal year 2015-16 budget appropriation of $350,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Crystal, please call the roll.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Grisilli?
Yes.
Councilmember Obert?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes. And Chief, congratulations again. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your presentations. And with that, we'll move on to item 10A, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a marketing license agreement to participate in the National League of Cities Service Line Warranty Program. Mr. Walter.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. Jay Walter, Public Works Director, standing in for Tara Peterson, Assistant City Manager tonight, who is not quite back from her vacation. So tonight you'll be receiving a presentation from a representative of Utility Service Partners, and that's the company that's in charge of administering this program, should you choose to go in this direction. This is offered in partnership also with the National League of Cities. So tonight I'd like to ask Bonnie Cureton from Utility Service Partners to come up and present, and then after that she will be able to answer questions about the program, and I'll try to answer some questions about how it may roll out in the community and what some experience has been in other communities. So I'll ask Bonnie to come up now.
Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share the program with you. Again, my name is Bonnie Cureton. I'm with Utility Service Partners, and we are the administrator for the National League of Cities program. And I may be technologically illiterate on how to move these things forward. The red?
Let's see if it's, make sure it's on.
Okay, there we go. That's back. Okay, thank you. As you all are aware already, that there is a huge issue with infrastructure across the United States. I walked in, and in the lobby in the newspaper, there's a big headlines about $770 million for infrastructure. So the league, the National League of Cities, came together based on its membership. It's the largest organization advocating on behalf of cities in the country, and they created this enterprise programs for cities to participate in. Thus far, we've invested over $100 million in infrastructure for the laterals that go from wherever the city responsibility ends and the homeowners begins, all the way up to the lateral daylighting into the home. So that's monies that didn't have to come out of the homeowners' pockets. We also pride ourselves in educating the customers in terms of what their responsibility is, and we provide very, very affordable solutions. So our goals truly are peace of mind, partnership, and a promise. In that peace of mind, we understand based on some statistics that people don't have a lot of money laying around. I think the U.S. Bureau of U.S. Consensus said $400 was the average amount that people have in savings these days. So if a lateral broke or if a sewer line broke, it would be difficult for some people to come up with the monies to repair it. So this is an opportunity to give them a very, very affordable option at no cost to the city. There's no cost whatsoever, no administrative burden, and our promise is that we will maintain affordability. We're reputable, we're backed by the National League of Cities, and we're regulated by the state. So there's a lot of oversight that goes into this program. We also pride ourselves in our level of customer satisfaction, and we make sure that our customers are satisfied, and you'll see that a little bit later. The other piece besides education, which is key because some people really don't understand their, okay, what'd I do? Thank you, Crystal. Okay. What a lot of people don't understand is where their responsibility begins and ends. So our goal is to truly educate the homeowners on the fact that their laterals are subjected to the same thing that the mains are, that this infrastructure upgrade that you all are looking into, they have the same issues. They're out of sight, out of mind. They fail. They leak water. They present environmental hazards. And a lot of times people think that they are covered by their homeowners policies, but truthfully, they generally are not. I believe there's riders that you can get for it, but 9 times out of 10, they're not covered. And a lot of people believe it's the city's responsibility. So when you send somebody out there, basically the staff has to say, I'm sorry, it's on your side, so it's your responsibility. The average cost of repairs across the country runs about $1,300 and up. And we offer 3 different programs. This is not my day. Okay, we offer 3 different programs. We offer an external sewer line warranty, and it protects against leaks, clogs, breaking, anything that would happen to that homeowner's lateral. Basically, we offer up to $4,000 coverage per incident, so there's no cap on the number of incidences that could occur. So the gentleman speaking about the tree root invasion that was raising the sidewalk by the senior center, if that happened to intrude the sewers, then we would cover that. We would go out, we'd send a local licensed plumber, and those things would be repaired. There's no annual or lifetime limits. There's no deductible fees, forms, or paperwork, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and we only use local licensed contractors. So we try and keep the money within the city. And we make sure that they meet your code, your requirements, everything that you would require them to have, and we do our own vetting as well. The rate for sewer is $9 a month for a total of $103 a year, which is extraordinarily affordable considering that there are no maximums in terms of the number of incidents. On the next one, it is for our external water line. And again, it's leaks, clogs, broken pipes we repair or replace. And we educate the homeowners and their responsibility. It's the same type of coverage, $4,000 per incident. So if it happened twice, 3, 4 times in a year, they just have to call one number and we will have somebody out there. The cost for this is $6 a month, which is $67 per year. which is less than a plumber's call, just to have somebody come out and look. The third product that we have is and this was really designed based on homeowners' demand, and it's a in-home plumbing product. Again, it's wherever your homeowners leaves off. We cover everything behind the walls. We'll cover clogged toilets. We'll cover basically anything underneath the slab, and that goes for all the programs. We cover everything until it daylights in the home. So if it's under a slab, we dig it up, we'll replace it, and we'll repair it. The in-home plumbing is nice because, toilets get clogged. And you can call it plumber out, and the price of that product is $650 per month, which is only $73 a year. So as you can see, it's extraordinarily affordable, and the way that we're able to do that is working in partnership with the National League of Cities and in partnership with cities like yourselves. We don't do any advertising. We will never mass mail into a community like some other folks do. We will stand behind everything that we do, and if there is any reason that anyone's unsatisfied, we actually have a process where we will handle the claim. The way that the claim process works is that it's initiated by a phone call or on our website. Our customer care team, again, is on call at all times and will dispatch a contractor. They have an hour to get out there to review what's going on. And then basically the contractor does the repairs. We don't set pricing for contractors. They can charge whatever they normally charge. If we have master plumbers on staff, and if it looks like it's an exorbitant fee for the type of repair, then basically what we'll do is send out a second contractor to keep them honest, and we'll take a look at what the pricing should be. And following the service, we issue customer care satisfaction surveys, and the surveys are sent to the customers, and then any low scores based on the repair or any complaints are reported to myself or upper management for immediate action. So they're escalated, and we take care of those. If anything happens that we feel the city might need to know about, we're in communication with you all, and all action on the plumbing side will be coordinated with the city's existing codes and structures. The way that we actually get the word out is we send a letter, and it's designated truly to educate the homeowner, and it includes the city logo and the signature. It goes through 3 levels of quality check, and we will never send anything out in any campaign without prior approval from the city. So if you sign up for the agreement, each campaign is a separate entity, and you have the option to approve the letter and send it out or not. Once it's approved, we acquire the mailing list, or you can provide the mailing list, and then the dates are assigned and communicated. The letters are printed and sent. We actually prefer that a press release go out to the citizens so that they understand what's happening and what the product is and what the services are. We conduct 3 campaigns per year. We have one in the spring, one in the fall, and one in the winter. We usually lead with sewer, no matter when a city comes on board. Currently, we have, let me see. The enrollment process is very easy. Basically, they can choose any of those products, 1, 2, 3, or none. It's 100% voluntary. There's no waiting period for anyone to enroll. When the campaign's rolled out, they can enroll either by letter, phone, over the internet, and they can cancel at any time they choose. So they can actually get a repair. I know people always ask me, well, can we get a repair and then cancel 6 months down the road? And the answer to that is yes. And somebody much smarter than I has figured all of that out. So it really is very flexible. The whole product is designed to be in partnership with the city. As you address your main issues and the city's issues, it affects every residential homeowner that ties into those mains. And so this helps them, provides them with a very, very affordable option to get those things taken care of and upgraded and brought up to par, brought up, 100 years, you guys, 1900 or so when the city was built. So some of those pipes out there are really old. We currently The biggest city near you all is Daly City, and they've been a partner since the beginning. And if you talk with their public works manager, they absolutely love the program. You can hear testimony after testimony of people who have used it, and it's been fabulous savings for them. It's been a wonderful option for the city to be able to refer them to a program that provides such benefit and generous coverage. So at this point, because I promised I'd be 5 minutes, I'll have questions. Any questions on the program?
Thank you very much. Questions for Ms. Cureton? Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Nice presentation. I have two questions, one of which is for you and the other for either Jay or Jeff. The first question, I don't know if you're familiar with it from the local press coverage, but I think it was Millbrae had the problem recently where the contractor made a mistake and caused some severe damage to homes with a repair on a sewer lateral. So the question I have is how do you vet your contractors that you work with?
Well, we vet them in terms of making sure that they're licensed and insured. We ask if there's any local plumbers that are reputable that people have used in the past. And we take them through a series of questions the master plumber does in terms of what types of equipment they have. Are they capable of doing certain services? So it's a pretty thorough vetting process. And we try and keep it local. And sometimes if there's folks that don't meet those criteria within the city limits, then perhaps we will broaden our search to make sure that they are meet the qualifications. And then they carry insurance, and then we indemnify the city against everything. So everybody's held harmless.
Okay. I know that no vetting process is perfect, but it sounds like you're reasonably confident that this kind of error is pretty unlikely in your program.
We have not had one to date, and the program's
Even
been
better.
Yeah. We have not had anything like that to date, and it's been around for 10 years, mostly in the Pennsylvania area, and probably nationwide. We've been growing over the last 6 to 7 years.
Okay, thank you. The second question I have, which is, I said for either Jay or Jeff, and don't take this wrong, but I just want to make sure for the record what vetting process staff has been through with the service and organization to make sure that you're satisfied that everything is fine.
I'll start out, and Jeff may want to add to this after I'm done, but I had a personal conversation with the Daly City Public Works Manager who's been involved in this process, and the city has been very satisfied with how the program has rolled out and how the problems have been addressed and the program's been administered. There have been a couple of occasions that I was told where a customer was unsatisfied with what had happened, and Utility Service Partners jumped on it immediately, satisfied the customer completely, and everything worked out just fine. The one issue which I've identified from the beginning on this that Daly City had said may catch you a little bit off guard is when the letter goes out to the residents, they're likely to call the city first to ask, what's this? And then we would want to be able to explain that. And certainly, working with Bonnie, we would be able to refer them for more information, but also let them know that this has been through a process by which we've been to the council, talked to the council, and had this approved to be able to roll out to the residents. So from my perspective, I believe Daly City's been a good example of how well this has worked.
If I may, I said I had two, but I just thought of a third question, which Jay is actually probably either for you or for perhaps for Greg. The form of the letters that go out, is there something on them that indicates, this may sound a little bit cold here, but just off the top of my head, something that indicates that by engaging the service, you're dealing with a third-party private enterprise, not the city of San Carlos, and the city of San Carlos is not, other than our review of this, we're not actually standing behind this.
Right, and I guess I'll pull Greg into that one because we did have some discussion with Greg, between Greg and Bonnie on the format of the letter and the wording there.
Over to you, Greg.
Well, we did have some discussion of that, and that was a concern at the staff level. What we did on some language was to say that no city funds are used in the program, and the rest of the program will make it clear that it's not a city program. It's a program by an independent group.
Okay, fine, good, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one other thing too. City staff is more than ready to be able to help with their contractor vetting process, because we do have good experience with local contractors in the area as it relates to sewer line work. So we'll be more than happy to help with that.
All right, thank you, Mark. Ron?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So my sewer backed up one year on New Year's Eve as our friends were walking in the door for dinner. So if I pick up the phone and I have this sewer repair, or the in-home, I guess I would have, someone's going to pick up the phone or do I just call the repair, the plumber first and then call you?
No, all you do is pick up the phone and call us, and then we would get on we would contact the contractor and have him out there in that case within an hour to 2 hours, depending on what the urgency is.
All right, and then a while after that, they put in a new line, and because the old one wasn't very good, and it was about $1,200, and then it got roots in it. Is that covered too?
New one did?
Huh?
The new one did?
No, actually, it was roots in the old line, and then they had to come in. They fixed it, put in a new clean out, and then it got roots again. So all that's covered?
That's covered. Yep. It doesn't matter how many times those roots grow back. In California, it has a very, very severe problem with root invasion because of the drought. And so, yeah, and they do. And, hopefully the plumber is, there's options so that they don't grow back. I mean, the goal is not to have somebody come out repeatedly. So if there's a problem that we can correct the first time, if it means replacement, then that's what we need to do. But if in any case it comes back, there's no limit on the number of times the plumber will come back.
Well, to the tune of about $2,000, they did replace it. I noticed you said this is a seasonal campaign, but can we buy it at any time?
Once the campaign is launched and the contract is signed, all services are open. We have just found through our market research to offer one product at a time is less confusing for residents. So we start with sewer, but at that point they can purchase all three. They can purchase sewer, water, and in-home plumbing, or they can opt to purchase one or none. It's very flexible.
And then the last question I have is that we get these solicitations from the California Water Service for a similar service. Does yours compete with that?
It gives folks another option. They can certainly compare us with any other offers that they get and choose the one that they think, is the best value for them. But I can tell you that the ones that are out there do not offer the same level of coverage, the same, unlimited, no pre-existing conditions. You can know that there's tree roots in there, and we'll still come out and we'll do it for you. So I don't know if it's a direct competition because we cover water, sewer, and in-home plumbing, but I think the more options, the better.
And you don't offer sidewalk insurance, I take it?
Well, we do repair the sidewalks for $500. I mean, we do have up to $500 for sidewalk repair included in there. And in the sewer, it's $4,000 initially, and then if we go into the main, there's an additional $4,000 for both sewer and water. So it's a total of $8,000 per occurrence that is available, plus $500 for sidewalk. So it's extremely generous.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Bob?
Thank you. How long has your company been in existence?
The company actually started out as a part of a utility company in Pennsylvania, and it was spun off. I believe it's been about 10 years ago, where the focus was mainly in the Pennsylvania arena. And then we decided that we wanted to focus on the municipal market, and that's where NLC developed an enterprise program and looked at us and looked at several others. And so really our only focus is in municipal partnerships, and it's been about 10 years. We're a little slow in California because California's regulatory authority required a lot more vetting than the other states. So we've only been out here for a few years. We started and then we had to retract and put up a lot of money for the insurance board.
So in effect, I mean, the National League of Cities is like, it's like, how can I put this politely? It's basically they're like a sponsoring, again, they would be like we would be. They worked with you, and are they compensated for working with you?
That's a good question. I believe that we give them some kind of an annual payment, but it's not a per city or any kind of thing like that. They are the endorsers of the program.
Right.
Yes.
But they're a paid endorser.
Well, they're compensated because they do have some administration
I understand. No,
issues.
I'm not
yeah.
criticizing. I'm just making the fact that they're paid.
Absolutely,
They're
absolutely.
paid. They didn't do it out of the generosity of their heart.
Well, actually, they did it as a direct request from the city constituency.
In Pennsylvania.
Well, actually, all across the U.S. Remember, we were focused in Pennsylvania, and we broadened when they approached us to see.
And how many states are you in now?
That was a slide. I don't know where it went.
34 states?
No, we're in, let's see. I don't have the direct answer to that, but we have over 300 partners, in 34 states, 9 in state of California, and we're also in Canada. We're in Ontario.
Okay. And Daly City's been with you, I'm sorry, how long?
I believe they've been with us at least 4 or 5 years, I believe, but you could verify that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I just took over the California market, so.
Okay. Obviously, most of the cities you have are in Southern California, except for Yountville and Daly City. How long? So let's assume that I purchased the external sewer line product, and I had an issue, and you came out and you fixed it. And after a couple of years, I said, well, geez, I don't need this anymore, so I'm not going to pay anymore. I don't have to because it's done. What's the warranty?
What's the warranty on
the work?
On the work?
Yes.
I believe whatever the plumbing warranty would be.
Okay.
That's
so it's
what
up
would
to the
cover
plumber.
it. It's really I believe it's a year. Basically, I don't know, but I honestly don't know that question, the answer to that question. But if you decide not to do it, the truth of it is that once you replace a sewer pipe, I mean, they're 100 years old now, and we're really beginning to see problems. Generally, you don't see failures.
I understand. The odds are against it, but I'm just curious what the warranty is. So the price is, let's say for that product, would be $9 a month?
Yes.
How long is that fixed for?
Usually about 3 years. In the contract, it says that we have the option to increase it annually. So it's $9 the first year with the option for the next 2. Because the contract or the agreement we enter into the city is for 3 years. But with the customer, it's month to month, basically. And because of the regulatory climate here, it will take at least a year or so to get anything approved for a rate increase through the regulators. So you would be well aware of anything that would happen.
I'm sorry.
Since I've been on board, which will be about 2 years, they haven't had a rate increase.
So Daly City's paying $9?
I honestly don't know what Daly City's paying. They were one of the front leaders. They were one of the early adopters of the program. And some of the early adopters had different options. And there were some other options that were on the table, and we tried to tailor the product that best fit your needs based on the information that we were given.
And so you have other products besides these 3?
No, we have just other ways of partnering, that's all.
Other ways of partnering. So how are we partnering with, how would the San Carlos partnering work?
Basically, the letter that goes out says that this is a product that is endorsed by the NLC, and it's supported by the city of San Carlos. It's optional, voluntary, and then it explains what the products are.
So is that the same process that you use in Daly City?
See, I wasn't the person that marketed that, so I would have to look at that. I know that
I'm getting about 500. That's not bad in baseball. Not so good maybe here.
I will just say that there is an option for cities to is it okay if I talk about it? I mean, there are options where the cities can take royalties if they decide to. But because of the way that you guys are run, the option was not put on the table.
Okay.
So,
and we don't know if Daly City is getting a royalty, sort of like the National League of Cities is.
that's always an option for any size city, is that however, the prices are higher for the residential customers. So basically, it's just a pass on. So the benefit of not taking the royalty, I see it as twofold. A, the consumer gets the lower pricing option, and B, it doesn't raise any controversy on where the fund's going. Where do these royalties go? The city of Atlanta takes a royalty, every year, and they use it for their folks who can't afford the program or to offset high water bills.
Okay, so there's options within the program.
Yes, there's definite options within the program. Again, it's a partnership, so we want it to work for you. It's not like cookie cutter, but it's very rich and generous in terms of what we do offer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a few questions, kind of similar to Bob's line of questioning, but maybe I'll start with, do you have a sense of what percentage of homeowners take when you've done a rollout with a city and you've used the city logo, what are you looking for? You're looking for 1%, 10%, 50% of residents to sign up. What has been your experience in other cities?
Experience has been, it really varies drastically from city to city, and a lot has to do with the relationship between the city and the residents. And we have seen as high as 50%, and we've seen as low as 3%. So it just truly depends. I would say on average, we see probably about 20% participation. And again, that grows over time. Once one person has it fixed and people come out, then again, it's passed on and the word of mouth spreads and everybody wants it.
And so, has been discussed, there are other companies out there that offer similar policies. So is it, and this is maybe a question for Jay and Jeff, is it what we're voting on to grant this one particular company our city logo and the right to use kind of the city mark in their marketing materials? Is that what requires this action by the council?
Yes, because we do not offer the program without a city partnership. We will not go directly into that because we just don't see, there's too many folks out there that have misleading marketing practices. Sure. And so we just choose not to do that. And we're able to maintain our rich coverage and low prices through our partnership and in conjunction with cities because the participation rate increases and the educational transfer happens when they open the letter. So the truth is we want them to open the letter and not throw it away.
And so to Jay and to Jeff again, what's the public benefit in encouraging people to get this type of coverage?
Again, I can address that a little bit. I think it comes down to wanting to make sure that the people in San Carlos have the opportunity to participate. When you've had your home damaged by water or wastewater or whatnot, not only is it an expensive, an unexpected expense, large expense that you're having to deal with, but it's a very traumatic event. We're first responder on some of those incidents. Cal Water's first responder often on the water incidents. And, talking to other cities that have this program, it just seemed like it would be a no-brainer that you would want the people of San Carlos to have the opportunity to participate in a program like this to protect their homes at a time when they're dealing with something that can be very traumatic to their family.
And then how do you respond to the question then that says, well, okay, these services are available on the market already?
Well, I think, these services are directly related to what we do as a municipality, right? I mean, we're a service provider here. And in San Carlos, we contract for water service. Cal Fire or Cal Water has their own district, but these are related to municipal services, and these aren't unlike programs you might see a ABAG plan provide, where we're out and we're offering people grant programs to put in pop-up devices on their laterals. One, we want to help, prevent these kinds of things by having laterals that are, the public good is laterals are being maintained. If people have this insurance, they're more likely to keep the roots and other garbage out of their lateral so that they don't have a damaged lateral that's affecting our main line, which then can cause a sewer backflow into the public domain, which gets us in trouble with baykeepers. And so there's lots of good public benefit and a reason why the National League of Cities and agencies like CCAG and ABAG and California League of Cities promote these types of programs and work with cities to kind of fill a need. And I think this is an area where cities see a need and they don't see necessarily farmers and the mainline homeowners insurance companies really
doing the kind of job we think that ought to be done on this type of infrastructure issue and ensuring it.
Okay. And so back to Ron's point, there is, what was the name? California Water Services or something?
Yeah. Water, yeah.
My observation is that it feels like it's a quasi-government agency. It feels like it's misleading marketing material. And I guess, to Bob's point or some other point, the concern is there's something that's being sent out with the city logo. Are we planning to train the staff or have something on our website so if somebody Googles, like, is this legit? Should I be getting this? Like, are they going to get something on the city's website that says, yes, this is a program that we partner with? And I don't know if you can address that.
And actually, based on the conversations with the City of Daly City, we need to make sure that all the folks who answer our phones and are at the counters know about the program, can provide information about the program as well, and answer those questions. Because what we don't want is the sort of paranoia that comes with, there's somebody using your logo, and, well, I don't know anything about that. That would be a really bad way for us to move forward on this. So we do plan to educate our staff on it.
Okay.
And I'd like to just answer one other thing, too. As part of the services, we offer inflow and infiltration. Like if we go out there and we see that there's a cap missing or the downspouts aren't done right, then that's one of the services that the plumbers will provide. So I know in Laguna Beach, they had some real issues with some of the Baywatch people, and they were thrilled to be able to adopt it because it addressed those issues. It was very cost effective for them.
Okay, thanks. Bob had his light on first, unless you wanted to follow right on this thread.
Actually, it was right on this thread.
Okay, go for it.
I understand the questions. I guess the thing that I'm having a little difficulty parsing is it wasn't too many weeks ago that we approved participating in the community choice aggregation system, which effectively is very similar in a different area, which is a quasi-governmental agency saying, hey, you don't have to do this, but if you'd like to do this because you'd like greener energy or whatever, here, go ahead and do this. So I don't actually see, that's not necessarily a problem with adequate safeguards about disclosure. I did have one other question, but I will wait till after Bob has had a chance to ask his.
A couple of quick ones. Is USP a publicly traded company?
They're held by Macquarie, which is a energy company. I don't believe that they're publicly traded.
How do you spell Macquarie?
It's MCQUORI. I'll have to, or
And that's a publicly traded company?
I honestly don't know if Macquarie is publicly traded.
Okay.
I'll have to find out for you. But they're $1 billion industry. I mean, they're $1 billion company. They're global.
Have you gone into, are you aware of any cities that you've gone into and for whatever reason, whether it's regional or local or whatever, it just didn't take, and you go, we're out of here?
We will never leave a city without the services. Now, the city can opt, instead of going for the 3 years, they can opt, they can come back, like I said, with the letter and say, we want to pause for a campaign. We need to regroup and rethink this. So, we've had cities that say, okay, I just want to take a look back, step back, and figure out what to do next. But no, we as a company have never stepped out of an agreement.
So we set up a 3-year agreement, and after 3 years, let me rephrase the question. After 3 years, I'm sure you look at it just like any other business and say, well, we got 2% here. This isn't working. We're out of here.
You all can say we don't want to mail any longer,
right,
but our services are still available for those who signed.
Okay.
Okay.
So you never have left a city, because even though you've gotten a very small percentage, you never leave a city.
We never leave a city, which is why we use local contractors.
Okay, just asking the question because it's a business model.
Absolutely.
And, if you're not getting enough call on it, there may be some cost to it. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 questions, both for staff. What, if any, other alternatives to this service have you guys looked at and evaluated?
We haven't looked at any other alternatives.
And this one was sourced to us through contacts at the National League of Cities?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, Greg, question for you. kind of following off a little bit on one of Bob's recent questions, with the, if things don't work out right, are there, and I'm doing, horrible what-if scenarios. Something happens and it turns out that we become convinced 6 months after we sign this that this is all a bunch of shenanigans. Do we have the ability to cancel this and say, okay, fine, we're out of here?
Yeah, I'm just looking at that part of the agreement here.
I can tell you that if for any reason...
Yeah, that's right. It's we have 30 days notice to terminate.
30 days notice to terminate. Okay, fine. That adds additional flexibility to it.
I have one other question. So, Greg, what kind of relationship do we have with this company? Would this be considered a city contract?
It will be a contract, but the agreement that you're approving is a marketing and license agreement. It's basically giving permission to use our logo in their marketing materials, and then gives us participation in the marketing of the program, as being said by the representative. It gives us some flexibility, but the bottom line is it's a license of our logo.
So if another company wanted to provide a similar service, do we have any obligation to have like an open process to allow other companies access to the same opportunity, I guess is my fundamental question.
We do not.
And why is that? Because there's no exchange of money? Is that why?
No, it's just you have the right as a council to evaluate each program, and because it's an agreement, you can choose to participate in this program and no others, or participate in others if you feel like it's appropriate for the residents.
It's not exclusive. So if another good opportunity came on, as was mentioned earlier, we would see no problem whatsoever in competition with another reputable provider. I think our residents would be the beneficiaries, and that's the whole point here.
Yeah, and the customers, the cities, the programs that you see out there, a lot of them will use demographic data and mail to certain demographics, which I believe leads to Councilman, I can't pronounce it, Grosselli's comment, is that, okay, thank you, is that they will target certain communities. And so the league wanted to make sure that it was evenly distributed against all demographics so that everyone had the opportunity to participate. And so that's what you tend to see with people who are in this industry who are really out there to make money. I mean, we do it as a partnership, obviously, for the cities. I mean, our whole goal is to partner with you and provide a solution and peace of mind for your customers.
Okay. Ron?
Yeah, just a couple of last questions for Bonnie. Speaking of competitors, we asked our staff if any competitors had come to us. Do you have any national competitors that provide the same kind of service?
There are about 4 or 5 companies out there that nationally provide very similar services. Their models tend to be different. They tend to want to align themselves more with the water authorities or, the sewer authorities in terms of offering the programs. There's really, since we've begun the development of this program, more and more people are beginning to jump on and kind of do like look-alike programs. And we have been vetted by several council of governments. We're in competitive bidding processes where we have ranked and won the contracts, generally across the country where we have partnerships with the COGS. So we've been vetted, the whole RFP'd, the whole 9 yards.
All right, and forgive me if anybody else asks this question, but do you offer any help for low-income homeowners?
The program, as it stands, we offered the lowest price that is there. As a part of the royalty piece, if that had been taken, a lot of people use those funds for the lower income. But at this point, if you think about what did the sewer one end up being? The sewer is probably the most expensive program that we offer, and it's less than, $100 a year? So $103 a year. So, that's very affordable. They designed it with fixed income folks, the elderly, and the people who couldn't really afford it.
Right.
That's really the target of what this product is for. I mean, I've heard stories, and I know you guys want to go, but of people who have severed their sewer lines in the backyard because they can't afford to get it fixed. So most people can afford $9 a month, even if you're on a fixed income.
Jeff, go ahead.
You had mentioned earlier that Atlanta, who was getting some money from the program, was using that to create a. So I assume that if we wanted to, not do that, but if we wanted to actually say to you, well, we'd actually like to pay, our own general fund money to have a tier that was even lower, that would be an option then?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. We will look at doing or customizing something for you all.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mark.
I'd like to make a motion.
Let me first ask, is there any public comment on this issue? And hearing none, please go right ahead.
Thank you. I move to adopt Resolution
32.
2016-32, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos authorizing the city manager to execute a marketing license agreement to participate in the National League of Cities Service Line Warranty Program.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Through the chair, I'm just not comfortable with the whole thing. And so I'd like to see San Bruno, Menlo Park, Como. I'd like to be the fifth or sixth city. I wouldn't want to be I don't want to be the second. So I'm voting no on this, among other questions that unfortunately were not able to be answered tonight. So.
All right. Any other discussion?
I'll just make a comment that I'm going to support this measure, not because I necessarily know the answer to all the questions or can imagine what all the questions are, but I think that this provides an opportunity, as various people have said, this provides an option for people who have a concern and about the risk of financial impact of these kinds of events, which strikes me as being reasonable with adequate disclosure rules and whatnot. I'm confident the residents of San Carlos will make an intelligent decision to serve their own interests.
Okay.
Yeah, my feelings, I always want to give people options. And quite frankly, if this service had been available 10 years ago before my sewers backed up, I probably would have taken advantage of it. So I'm going to support it too.
Look, through the chair, not like I don't want to give people options. I'm just not comfortable with this program. So let's make sure that what I said is what I said.
Understood.
And I'll say I'm a little on the fence personally, but I'm reasonably persuaded that there is a public interest, and I'm reasonably persuaded that we're not necessarily giving a exclusive license to a particular company. So what I would say is I'm going to support it based on staff's recommendation, really, but with the hope that the program goes very smoothly and there's not, a lot of confusion or people feeling like, hey, the city is pushing me to pay higher fees for something that they don't know what it is or something like that. So if you think there's a clear, compelling benefit to the city, then I'm happy to support it. Was there any other comments? If not, Crystal, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Grisilli?
No.
Councilmember Olbert?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Kierton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to item 10C, consideration of adopting a resolution approving the citywide storm drain system master plan. Mr. Walter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight we have City Engineer Grace Lee to be able to do the presentation on our storm drain system master plan. And just as a way of letting the council know, giving you some context, earlier this year we embarked on some pretty aggressive preparations for what was the coming El Nino season. And we did a lot of work that's related to the maintenance of our existing system, removing sediment and modifying some inlets, and doing that in preparation for higher flows. And so far this season, what we've seen with the rainfall that we've received is we've had a system that has performed fairly well. What we have not seen, however, from the rain is a significant and extended downpour, which is a concern virtually every time we have rain that's in the forecast. we've been fortunate with steady but lighter rainfall. So, that being said, we've done a lot of work to get ready for this season, and I think we've fared pretty well so far. But what Grace is going to talk about really is kind of the plan for what are the next steps, the bigger steps that we need to take. So I'll ask Grace to come up and begin her presentation. And
good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Grace Lee, City Engineer. For tonight, thank you. For tonight, I want to start the presentation with an overview of our city storm drain system, then move on to touch upon some of the challenges with flood management. Then I want to talk about the Phase 2 study of our storm master plan. This will focus more on the creek hydraulic analysis and talk about the input that went into our current hydraulic model. Also want to talk about the analysis that went into the modeling and show you guys the prioritized list of improvements, focusing on the highest priority project, CIP 1A. And we can also end with some funding considerations. On the exhibit you see, I'm trying to position the mouse, that this is an overview of our city. The black dotted line represents the city limits. The purple lines are our city's underground storm drain system. The yellow polygon represents watersheds, and these are really large watersheds. But rainfall runoff runs on the watershed, then drains into the purple storm drain pipelines. The storm drain pipelines discharge into the blue lines. That represents our creek system. For the city of San Carlos, we have 4 major creeks. Bordering the north side of the city is Belmont Creek. Within the city, we have Polgus Creek as well as Britton Creek. Britton Creek converges with Polgus Creek and discharges out into the bay. Bordering the south side of the city limit is Cordilleras Creek. And as you can see, this is our whole storm drain system working together, from upstream system discharging to lower system, which is our creek system, and then out to the bay. Some of the floodplain flood management challenges. One of the challenges, the storm drain pipeline with insufficient capacity, and this is where our storm master plan can help us. The modeling will show us the areas of deficiency that we can look at upsizing and upgrading. Another challenge is just storm drain inlet blockages from leaves and debris. And this is where our maintenance crew is very vigilant pre, during, and post-storm to clear out storm drain systems. And we also have a citywide ongoing project, our program, to change out inlets, increase the size of inlets so we can combat these debris and leaves blogging our inlets. And on the screen to your right is a picture of the inlet replacement. Another challenge is backwater and overtopping from creeks. The previous exhibit that I showed you showed our system. Our downstream system is a creek system. So as sedimentation happens in our creek system, it diminishes the capacity of the creek system, and water can actually backwater into our upper system, which is our pipeline system, and it can also overtop the creeks. So that's another major part of our system that we need to look into. That leads me to a Phase 2 study of the Storm Master Plan. Currently, staff is working on a more in-depth analysis for our creek system. And currently, what's in the model for the creeks are based on LIDAR data, which is aerial survey data that we have in our model. For this Phase 2 study, we're hoping to get more detailed data. We're going to actually go and in intervals do land survey of the creek cross section. And the purpose is we want to know exactly where the sedimentation problems are and where we may have creek stability problem. That's where the soil flushes down to the creek and causes that sedimentation problem. So we want to pinpoint exactly what those locations are and what kind of improvements we can do for those areas. So with that detailed data fed back into the model, we'll be able to model the backwater effect, the overtopping from the creeks that I've been talking about. I also want to share some of the input that went into the hydraulic model. The model had over 1,000 pipe sections, representing over 32 miles of pipe, which is over 80% of our entire system. The city was also divided into 4 rainfall regions. Our city is not that big, but those rainfall regions are significant. Rainfall in the hillside is very different from rainfall in the low-lying areas. So the city was divided up into regions, rainfall regions, and also further divided up to over 480 sub-watersheds. So the yellow polygon that I previously showed, those are big watersheds. They're further divided up into sub-watersheds. And in each watershed, we'd estimate the percentage of pervious and impervious surface so we can estimate better the runoff. The model is also fully dynamic, which means that the daily tide cycle is taken into account when we run the model. And we also put in 5 monitoring locations, flow monitoring devices to monitor the actual flow that went through the city, and that data is used to calibrate the model. Some of the modeling analysis that went on, we ran the model with various storm scenarios, the 10-year scenario, 25-year scenario, and 100-year. 10-year design storm means a storm that you can expect once every decade. And we can also talk about it in terms of level of protection. If a system has a 10-year level of protection, it means that your system has the capacity to withstand a 10-year storm. For older existing systems like the city system, having a 10-year storm capacity is a very good system. And it's also the baseline for our level of protection. So after we run the model with a 10-year storm and know the areas that we need improvement, we would improve those areas to a 25-year design storm. A 25-year design storm is a storm with an intensity you would expect once every 25 years. And this is a target storm to upgrade to because it's most cost-effective. There's a lot of downstream constraints, such as the stream downstream constraint, where typically a stream system doesn't have more than a 25-year capacity. So it's really not cost-effective or practical to upgrade beyond a 25-year design storm. And a 100-year storm is a storm you'll expect once every century. And that's for pipeline system, it's more for future planning purposes, more for if you're designing a new system. For existing systems, it's infeasible to upgrade your system to meet a 100-year design storm. And also because of the downstream constraints that I mentioned about the creek system. Based on the modeling, we have 9 projects prioritized in order of importance or severity of flooding. And all 9 projects total over $34 million. And that's not even counting the Tier 2 projects, which are various upgrades throughout the city. On my next slide, I'll be focusing on CIP 1A, which is the southern part of El Camino. That's, the cost is over $5 million, and it's our highest priority project. In this graphic, you'll see, this is CIP 1A, our highest priority project. You'll see the yellow stars with addresses representing locations of known flooding, and that's based on the December 11, 2014 storm. That's widely known as the 10-year storm. And the yellow pipeline shows the pipelines that are needing upsize. And all the yellow pipelines combined represent CIP 1A. The green area shows the area of flooding that's avoided if CIP 1A is implemented. And this is based on a 25-year design storm. Blue areas represent areas that remains flooded. And this is based on a 25-year design storm. You can see that the blue areas are close proximity to the creek system. And that shows you why we need to further study the downstream system, which is our creek system. Some of the funding considerations, near term, we'll be coming back to the council during the upcoming budget cycle to ask for appropriation for the highest priority project, which is CIP 1A, a little over $5 million. For long term, these are really big dollar amounts, and we'd have to look into something similar to a storm fee through Proposition 218, something similar to a sewer fee that the users will have to pay for. Or we can think about creating assessment districts. It would most likely be a citywide assessment district where it'll have to go through election and ballot and vote to have assessments. Or any other kind of bonding type mechanisms. And all these long-term plans, we'd have to have further dialogue with the council as well as our finance department to get a better understanding of what all these really mean. For tonight, the recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving the citywide storm drain system master plan. And with that, I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Grace. Questions for Grace? Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Jay. Two questions. One is, and by the way, I found the report very educational, as I told you this afternoon when I was going through it. How does one go about determining a 25-year storm in the midst of climate change?
That's a good question. So climate change affects mostly sea level rise. They could make storm like El Nino, all that, but how they determine the 25-year, the 100-year, it's all statistic, and it's based on what's happened to date. So they would look back at data and see and calculate that probability. And so if we had a back-to-back 10-year storm, then that strength is no longer a 10-year storm event. So it kind of changes as we move forward in time. But the method is to look back at the previous years and see where the 100-year mark is, 10-year mark. And it does also vary too. It depends on your 24-hour mark where you take the peak, and so it gets more involved.
I appreciate the explanation. It's interesting. So it's a retrospective historical look. And this is not a criticism, but what's interesting about that is from the experts I've talked to, they still haven't decided yet whether climate change is going to tip California into a warm, dry phase or a warm, wet phase. And either one is likely to be very different from what the recent history has been. So in a sense, I don't have anything better to suggest. We could be significantly off on what we think a 25-year storm is. But I did notice in the analyses that you had done, the flooding impact of the 100-year storm, which I presume is worse than the 25-year storm, there's certainly more impacts, but a lot of the solution that's proposed here covers both. In other words, there are areas that still flood in the 100-year storm, but most of the areas that could flood in either type of storm are covered by the 25-year thing.
Right, and that's when you look at it. When I describe the storm system, it's the upstream system going to the downstream system. So as the storm intensity gets higher, the downstream system dominates. So being able to, and you would see most of the improvements are concentrated on the downstream system. But by doing that, you alleviate a lot of that problem. And so when you do the 25-year improvement, you do help the 100-year. You don't completely eliminate it. You still have, I see still a lot of blue areas around the creek system, but there is, you do minimize that.
Thank you. I said I had another question, but it's really a comment. I'll hold it for the discussion period. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Ron?
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. I'm just doing some quick math, but I wanted to ask you, if $52 million magically appeared in the budget tomorrow, have you done some modeling as to how long all of the repairs and improvements and upgrades would take? Is it a matter of a couple years, 10 years, 15 years?
So it would be nice if we had 52 million tomorrow, but we still would not be able to complete all the improvements by this year. So really, when it's the priority projects that are packaged together, we're really looking at 1 year for design and 1 year for construction, barring any kind of other permit requirements. So if you go like that, if you go alternative, this year I'm going to design and then construct, and then, so you're looking at, I think I said 9 projects for the top priority projects. We're going to take 10 years for that.
So
We can
that's-
couple projects, but I'm just estimating, thinking this is a 5 to 10 year CIP plan.
All right. So 5 to 10 years. So if we were to, I'm just picking one, for example, if we did in a citywide storm drain assessment district, how would that work? Would we bond for that money, for $52 million over a period of 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years? I just did some quick math and said if we did it over 25 years, it cost everybody about $14 a month. Am I thinking about it the right way? Or is there a different methodology that you would use?
My thinking is in line with you, and there might be other options. Our finance people can tell us more. But what I normally, for assessment districts, citywide assessment district, we do need the money up front to start projects. So we couldn't just wait for assessments to accumulate before we start the project. So most likely we want to go out for some bonding, selling some bonds, but the bonds would be backed up by the assurance of the assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I would see it.
Okay. Thanks. That's it for me.
Thanks, Ron. Bob, did you have any questions?
No. Questions are answered, and assuming, like you said, that this was approved tonight, this plan, and assuming that we could find $5 million in the budget, then it would take about 2 years to get the first 1A done, approximately. 1 year for design and 1 year for construction.
Right.
Ballpark.
Yeah. We haven't started any of the design yet. We don't have the funding, but once we have the funding, we can start the design and start the construction.
Like I said, if it was in the budget, if we approve the budget, then it would start, the sort of the time frame would start around then. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation, Grace. I had a question about kind of the Green Streets methodology. So I know, some of the state-of-the-art in stormwater these days is the idea that rather than piping everything all the way down the hill, you give lots of opportunities for the water to percolate into the ground. And I was kind of curious as to why, there wasn't really mention of that in the plan, and how kind of Public Works Department thinks about those approaches. Are they appropriate for San Carlos? How might we think about it?
So the green infrastructure as well as low impact development, those are all great. And it's because of that moving forward, we don't have to worry too much about the future development and future runoff increases. But this is an existing problem that we have now. So even though we're implementing low impact development, we'll go forward with green infrastructure. That's not going to help with an existing flooding problem. So we would need to address that now. For this report, it's mostly analyzing pipelines. For the phase 2 study, we'll analyze the creek system. And for opportunities for green infrastructure, we're mandated to come up with a green infrastructure plan. So that would look into that too, about taking future opportunities to combine improving water quality as well as reducing runoff.
Okay, so if we support the plan as it is stated tonight, it doesn't prevent the city from, it doesn't sort of enshrine in policy that, hey, our only approach to stormwater is pipes.
Definitely not. And that green infrastructure and low impact development, it's a great way to move forward. So you don't have an increasingly bigger problem. But because now we do have flooding areas that we need to address currently. And because the runoff is the amount it is already, that we can't just rely on green infrastructure to take care of it.
I see.
It's
there's
bigger.
There's not really an opportunity to convert any of our, whereas we might today be piping something all the way to the creek, creating, and I'm not an engineer, and so I don't know how these things exactly work, but I know the notion is rather than pipe it all the way out, you let it percolate down. And do you see any opportunities to alter our existing infrastructure to something like that?
I think with that, it would have to be a pretty significant pervious area, like a park or some really big fields, and it had to be. And it'll have to be upstream, so it can take care of it upstream before it goes downstream. So it's great if those opportunities come up, but it's a little more difficult to do.
Okay. Well, I'll just, say that I hope it's something that we look at and we look for opportunities to, in addition to alleviate the real flooding problems, which are clear, also look at, alternative approaches to stormwater remediation in the future. So, Mark, did you have a comment or a question you want to make?
I was actually going to make a motion.
Any other questions? I do have one public comment card.
Certainly.
Any other questions for Grace? All right. Thank you, Grace. I'll invite up Louis Boris to speak under public comment. Good evening, Mr. Boris. Good to see you again.
Actually, I won't give the presentation I thought I was going to give tonight because Grace here answered all the questions that I had. Last month when I came up, my main question was that I wanted to see and make sure that the 14, 15, and 1600 block was included in that CIP 1A, and then I've gone up to the office upstairs there and I got the maps and everything, and I looked at that and I see that it is in there. And I guess my only comment and to ask is it is number one priority, and that's all I can ask. I mean, I just hope, it's been since 1969, and I just hope it, goes through and we don't have all the lesser ones going in. We're still put in the back of the line. So I appreciate your time, and thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, Mark. Oh, pardon me. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on public comment? Mr. Rodriguez? I didn't hold you to 2 minutes last time, but I will hold you to 2 minutes this time. So.
Thank you. I lived on the 1700 block of Walnut Street, and years ago when Granada's Nursery, when I was growing up, we'd have floods, we'd have sandbags out there. Now, I've gone to two creeks, the one up here north and the one by Eaton Avenue. Unless it's been changed in the last 2 years when I came through here, there was numerous rocks just building up that area. There was encampments going on there, people staying there, and I think maybe if the citizens, each one picked up 2 or 3 rocks and we put them all in the truck, and maybe they could make a concrete walkway, something, it might be beneficial rather than just let it sit there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 2016-33, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos approving the citywide storm drain system master plan.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, if I may.
Please do.
I'm going to vote to support this, but I want to highlight an issue which I've begun discussing with Jay and his staff. Both when we look at the capital appropriation for next year, and certainly if we look longer term at a larger bonding type program or assessment fee program, I am interested in getting some insight into the, let's call it the relative contribution of past development in San Carlos up in the hills and the sort of natural terrain features of San Carlos causing flooding in certain areas. And the reason I think that's important is because considering the possibility of a bonding type exercise, we are going to need to be able to answer the question to the people throughout the community when we look at these projects that are mostly concentrated in a small subsection of San Carlos, why it's in their interest to pay higher taxes to solve this problem. There are arguments that can be done to support that of a number of kinds. One of the ones would be because where you live happens to be causing part of the problem. And I'd like to know that. And conversely, if it really is just a function of the natural terrain of the city, then maybe we need to think about assessment districts that are charging different amounts for different areas of the city. But I certainly support the master plan because we need to identify the problem before we figure out how to solve it. And it's a lot of good work that went into doing it.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else? Crystal, please call the roll.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Grisilli?
Yes.
Councilmember Obert?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes. And with that, we are adjourned.